everyone, welcome back to the channel and thank you for tuning back in. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Layla, the Lenormand reader, and today folks we are doing another card combination exercise. I've got the deck. I'm gonna pick two cards to start. This is where we start with Lenormand with two cards, and then we're gonna add on some triplets or a third card to read a triplet. So let's go ahead and draw two cards randomly, see what we get this time. The fox and the dog. So this is a clear combination of a relationship. The dog typically represents a friend, someone we know, someone in our peer group is the most common way of interpreting the dog. So someone in our peer group is something like a friend, a colleague, a sibling. It can also represent someone who helps out with some work, especially with the fox. So this can be someone like an employee or an agent or a worker who gives us support in some area of life. But the fox is typically a tricky card, as you probably know by now if you've been on my channel for a while. The fox represents someone like a trickster, someone who can be deceptive, not always transparent, and probably who has ulterior motives. So when we see the fox and dog figuring together, it can more often than not represent someone like a friend, quote unquote, who is not being honest, who is not being transparent. This is someone who is half-hearted, who keeps thoughts to themselves, who might have ulterior motives, and who is not really transparent. So it's not really a friend. And anyway, the order of the cards figure, I think it's going to be the same meaning of the dog and fox. So let's go ahead and start with our triplets. Let's add any card. The flowers. Now this can be a positive spin on the dog and fox. However, sometimes the fox and flowers can represent false compliments, or just giving out compliments for the sake of being nice, not really meaning them, not really coming from the heart. And when we see it with the fox and dog, it can represent the type of person who just says nice things for the sake of saying them. But the fact that the flowers is on the right-hand side of the line can suggest that if we've had doubts about this person, they can be rectified. So it turns out that the fox is not so much of a fox after all. They can turn out to be a nice person. And I think it would be more so the case if the dog is next to the flowers, because then the fox is farther away from the flowers and this idea of false compliments is reduced. And instead what comes out more is the dog and flowers, the idea of a good friend, someone very helpful, someone very optimistic and bright that brings a lot of positive energy to the relationship. So seeing the cards in this order, I think is the order that brings out the idea of overcoming doubts or suspicions about a person the most. If we had the fox on the right-hand side, it's more likely that this is someone who is not transparent. Someone who gives out these compliments just for the sake of it, just saying nice things to be nice, to pretend to be nice, a bit of a pretender here. And again, with the dog in the middle, I think it's really the idea of having the fox on the right that causes this. We still have this idea that this person is not 100%. We still have this idea that this person is not 100% honest. It's really the position of the fox on the right-hand side that brings this out the most. So let's go ahead and move on to another triplet. Let's see. Bright cards are probably gonna do the same thing. The letter, though, is a neutral card. The letter is about news, communications, documents, paperwork, applications. And the thing about the fox here, this can refer to actually someone we are working with to help out with some process, some application, some paperwork that we're working through. So the dog and fox brings out this idea of someone who's helping out with our administrative affairs. And so in this sense, the combination is pretty neutral. I think that if the letter is in the middle, I think something similar happens. And also if the dog is in the middle and the letter is at the beginning, something also similar. However, another way that we can interpret these cards is in terms of the news being suspicious. So we get this news from this person represented by the dog, and the fox here tells us that the news might not be 100% right, or maybe there's something hidden in it that we need to be careful and aware of. It's likely that we have to double check everything, double check all the facts, and not take it at face value. I would say it's important to do this. So with the fox and letter, it's important to double check the information. And I would say if the burden is on us to send out the communication, maybe this is guidance and advice to leave some details out, to be careful what we communicate, and to maintain a diplomatic approach to communication no matter what. So this can be helpful guidance in this sense. And in all cases, the line is more or less neutral, just watching this information. Let's move on to a third triplet. Picking it randomly from the deck again. The Sun. The Sun is obviously one of the most positive cards of the deck. And that's what I was saying earlier when we were talking about the flowers. I would say any positive card that comes up with the dog and fox can help overcome the suspicions that we might have because of the fox. So here we have the Sun next to the fox. So this turns around the trickster aspect of the fox and suggests that if we've had doubts about this relationship, they may not be warranted. This person can come through as someone supportive and probably also someone who is successful and smart. The fox by itself is actually a really clever card. It can have positive aspects. It's really good with work, discipline, taking care of the day-to-day stuff. It's also said to be really good with families. It's protective of its families and will sacrifice a lot to support its family. And so when we have it with the Sun, these very positive aspects come through the fox and suggest that this friend is actually supportive in this sense, as opposed to being, a trickster or someone who is dishonest. What is also nice about this card is that we can rely on someone's intelligence. So like we said, the dog and fox can represent this person who is helping us with our affairs, like an accountant, someone at the bank, possibly a lawyer, any one of these people we work with to support us with our administration, like we said with the letter. And with the fox here, there can be someone really clever who knows what to do, maybe who knows how to get around an obstacle to help you achieve something successfully. And certainly with the Sun on the right-hand side of the line, this comes out the most because the right-hand side is best associated with the future-most aspect of a reading and also possibly the outcome. Now, at the same time, I feel that the Sun is so positive that no matter where it is in the line, it remains positive and it shines a light through all of the line. So if we had the dog, Sun, and fox, for example, I don't feel it changes the situation much. I still think this is someone who is supportive. I think it's possible that if this is about a tricky character, then the dog and Sun helps us see through the character. And the Sun in the middle suggests that the best way to deal with this situation or this tricky person is to just maintain an optimistic front and not really catch their ball of negativity. That's also possible. And having the Sun at the outset, I feel, would offer a similar indication. So it's really because the Sun is so bright that it doesn't really matter where it figures in the line. It delivers a bright message no matter what. And that would be the case with any of the positive cards, or at least the strongly positive cards, like the sunflowers, probably the key, and the clover, and possibly a few others. So let's go for more triplets. The woman. This is pretty straightforward. The woman is a person, just like the dog would be as a friend. And in this case, because the woman is neutral, it can bring out the negative aspects of the fox. So this can mean that this character, represented by the woman and dog, is someone who is not 100% transparent, like we said, a little bit false to your face, a bit of a trickster, somewhat deceptive, half-hearted, and all of these characteristics that we associate with the fox. And I think this would be the case really anywhere the woman falls in the line, whether it's in the middle here, or maybe at the beginning. It seems that in this case, all three cards are referring to one person. And the fox, in this case, tells us or warns us about this person's character. It's really the fox that brings out the qualities of this person, of the woman and dog, more than any of the two other cards. So you see how this is an example of a qualifier. In Lenormand, many authors like to associate the cards with noun, verb, adjective, and things like that. A lot of authors break down the cards and cards in a sentence as some kind of grammar. I don't use this often because I feel that the combinations just sort of speak, but sometimes it does come out pretty clearly, especially when we have qualifier cards, like we have the fox that qualifies this person, or we have the fox that qualifies the news. The news is neutral, and the fox brings certain qualities, so it tells us something about the news. Can be not 100% correct or transparent information. You need to double check the information. Similarly with qualifying a person, not 100% honest, a little bit tricky, a little bit deceptive. So these are some ways when certain cards can qualify others in a layout or a simple line. This is also something that happens in the houses spread in a tableau reading. And I did say we're going to come around to do this. I think before we get to it, we need to do a few videos about the portrait and the grand tableau, and these are in the pipeline for you, so be sure to stay tuned. So with the woman, it's pretty straightforward. It's just another person card that is neutral and that plays a similar role to the dog in this line. So let's go ahead and draw a third, or however we were at a fifth triplet now. Let's take this card. Okay. The whip is the most challenging card of the deck, so definitely conflict is going to be at hand here. When we see it closest to the fox, and even really no matter the order, we're going to play around a little bit in just a few seconds. But clearly the fox and whip brings out a challenging character here. This can be an outright conflict, a trap played out, something really deceptive comes through, and we see that this is about this person. So it's very likely that when we see the cards in this order, we are seeing that there's this person, a friend of ours, or someone we know creates a major disappointment. Maybe a certain aspect of them comes through. We discover something about them that is really disappointment, or it could be an outright conflict that occurs with them. So an argument, some kind of fight over something, and that would definitely be the case with the whip here. Now, if we played around a little bit with the order, I think with the fox at the end of the line, it can possibly reduce a little bit the impact of the whip, because it can suggest that we tone down a little bit the conflict and the anger and the emotions, or whatever emotions would be associated with the whip, and suggest that we play it a bit more calmly, try to be a bit more diplomatic, calm down a little bit, and also not necessarily dump everything we have in us. So that could be a suggestion that comes through the cards when they show up in this order. It's also possible that we need to blow someone's cover. So with the whip, I would say mainly when it's on the right-hand side, but possibly also in any place in the line. The idea is when we have the whip and fox, we're sort of bringing the hidden aspects of the fox out into the open. So we're calling them out. We are pointing out the errors. We are, anything they're trying to hide, we blow it out of the water. So it's sort of, we blow the cover of the fox when we have the whip. And this might be called for in a situation like this, or depending on what the question is about. If we had the whip in the middle, I think the idea of separating from this person can come through very clearly, although again, the whip being so strong, just like the sun is very strong in its positive aspects, the whip is also very strong in its negative aspects. So sort of anywhere it figures brings out the similar indication, similar energies and conflict and turbulence that is associated with the whip. So in the middle here, there can be some kind of parting, because the dog and fox can each represent a person. And with the whip in the middle, we see it's like there's a wedge between them, there's a separation. And again, as with all the cards, this can be taken as guidance and suggestions and advice, and bring out this idea of needing to part with this person because, they're not well intended. And it can also continue to bring out this idea of calling them out or whatever it is they're trying to hide to blow it out of the water. So the whip is pretty turbulent. It's going to bring conflict to the situation here and also bring out more the negative aspects of the fox and suggest that there's a conflict in a relationship. Maybe we do a couple more triplets. The book. Wow, the book is the card of secrets and mysteries. And with the fox, definitely this is someone who is closed and will not reveal what they have in mind, especially with the book on the right hand side and closest to the fox. This is someone secretive. There is no question about this. So again, we see how a pair of cards can qualify a person represented by the dog in this case. Someone secretive, someone who keeps information to themselves, not really good with sharing knowledge, very selective. The type of people who don't want to share, just maybe they want to take the credit for it. You sort of see what I mean? That is possible. That would definitely be the case if we're talking about a colleague or someone at work. These types of characters tend to show up in these environments. I think with a different order of the cards, something similar comes through, especially when the book and fox are closest to each other. If we had the dog in the middle, I think in this case, it can mean that we meet someone new because of the book at the outset. And the person cards, they come after the book. So this can be someone we haven't met yet. But with the fox in here, it's important that we watch what they're like before we invest ourselves in them. And I would say, even if it's in the other way around, it would still apply. The fact that we have the book is at the outset, at the beginning of the line, is what tells us that this is someone we do not know yet. And having the fox in the line suggests that we need to be careful, maybe not be quick to trust them from the outset, just taking some time to get to know them, because we could find out that they're a bit of a tricky character. And I think that's really what comes through the book. In this order, I think here, the cards could be suggesting that we maybe stay away from someone or make sure that we don't share a lot of information with this person. So with the fox here, it can suggest that the advice is on us to keep our mouth closed, to keep some thoughts to ourselves. That's how I would take these different orders of the card to suggest different nuances for the combinations. Let's wrap up with one more triplet. I'm gonna pick it randomly again. The ship. Now that is interesting. That gives us something probably totally different from what we've read so far. The ship is a card of activity. It's very much associated with business and trade, the idea of imports and exports, and forward movement, adventure, and a lot of activity that is not necessarily about travel. So when we see it with the fox, which has the aspect of work, then I feel this theme is brought out better through the cards. And this aspect of the fox can come through a bit more clearly with the help of the ship. And with the dog here, it can mean that we're in for a new project, a new job, or that our projects bear fruit, and that there are some exciting adventures in this area. And it's really this order that I feel helps bring it out best, because the fox is on the other side of the ship. It's not close to the dog, which in this case would bring out the tricky aspects of the fox character more. So let's play around with some order of the cards here to see the different combinations. Here, the fox and dog are closest to each other, so there can be this tricky character that comes through. And with the ship on the other side, it can mean a trip or someone who travels. But again, the same idea that we read in the first order of the cards can continue to come through. The fox and dog here can represent a colleague or some kind of partnership with an adventure ahead, or some kind of venture or a project that kicks off. So this can be exciting. I would say just because the fox is closest to the dog, it might be a good idea to observe a little bit how things go, to watch a certain character, and to just keep that alertness that comes with the fox in the context of a tricky character. Suppose we had the ship at the outset here. I think that Again, the tricky aspects of the fox and dog can come through, but because the fox is next to the ship, this theme of work and projects can continue to come through as well. The fox in the center here can focus us on this idea of being careful, alert, aware, and calculating as we move forward in this project and as we move forward with these people in this project. The fox is also a self-interested card. So I would say it's important to put our interests first and also to be diplomatic with others as we see through the dog. But it's important to pursue our goals and to focus on them and to work with discipline. The fox is a card of discipline. It gets things done. It knows what it wants. And so it's really good with this. So it's not a bad idea to take advantage of this as good guidance. So I think this covers it, folks, in terms of the fox and dog and the different combinations that it can come with. We've covered through 7 triplets here. Let me know your thoughts about them. Let me know if you would approach any of them differently, if you have any questions for sure, and also if you have suggestions for card combination readings in our coming videos. So thank you so much for tuning in. Again, I'm looking forward to your thoughts and comments, and until we meet again, take very good care of yourself.